What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another quick switch review for a game that comes out today. Happy release day to the game Onion Assault. And thank you to Bertel Horberg, the creator of Gunman Clive and Mextermination and this great game Onion Assault, for the review code so I can put it out for today. Now, how I do my reviews is that I do a description, some gameplay elements, some positives, some negatives, and then I will get into some final thoughts at the end here. So let's get right into it. The description says, the evil Croquetto Empire is trying to conquer Onionia, and it's up to one brave onion farmer and his mom to stop the tyrannical invading fascist army. Defeat the evil army by throwing onions or lifting and throwing enemies. Old school gameplay inspired by 8-bit classics. Full 3D graphics with a unique art style and custom engine. 16 levels with a huge variety of different environments, obstacles, enemies, and giant bosses. This is a fun game. Very colorful, as you can see from the gameplay on your screen, that this is a very colorful game and definitely takes you back to the old school Mario game. So let's get into some gameplay elements. And it's just a one-player platformer, and the gameplay is relatively simple. You have a run, you have a jump, and you can pick up objects. So you pick up onions, obviously, because it's Onion Assault. You're throwing onions, but you're not just throwing onions. You're throwing enemies, you're throwing things like weights, you can throw even bullets from tanks, you can throw pretty much anything that is in the foreground of this game. And that really speaks to how cool and fun this game is, that you can basically throw anything and use it to your advantage. I don't know where they get the strength, maybe it's all the onions that they eat, but yeah, fun mechanic. You also have the ability to sprint, which will give you the ability to go across larger distances, and all of that is given to you very early on. It's a very short tutorial, and you can just jump right into it, and you have all of your platforming levels that ensue. And you get to choose between two different characters. You have Pell and Mama Locke. So pretty relatively essential, just a farmer and his mom. One of them just has her shirt off, running around in the buff. How you pick up the enemies is that you stand on their heads. Each enemy has a little bit of a red helmet. Kind of reminds me of just like some headgear if you're like a boxer or something like that. And you stand on top of their head and you pick them up and you throw them. What is an interesting mechanic is that the enemies will only die if you throw them at each other or if you throw them down a pit. So if you pick up an enemy and you just throw them at a wall or just on the ground, they'll flip back and they'll go back to what they were doing. So it makes for an interesting and unique challenge that you can get upon yourself, where you're thinking you can go to the next platform, you throw an enemy only for that enemy to appear right in front of you where you threw them. And there are various different enemy types. Some of them are just walking, some of them jump, some of them have rocket launchers, some of them are giant boxers, some of them are robots. So it's just, think about any enemy that you are familiar with from a Mario game, and that type of enemy is in this particular game. So that's really good. Some items are kind of heavy or too heavy that you may have to mash the pickup button to be able to pick them up. So there are a couple of things like that. There's like 100-ton weight that you have to throw at walls to be able to do that. There's sometimes that you use onions and cannons to be able to shoot walls. There's a train that you're going on. You have to deal with platforms and also moving platforms and just everything that gets thrown at you at a standard platformer game. So everything is pretty standard, but also does it in a very unique art style. And there's also coins to collect, but each coin, the coin system is really just a way to get you more lives, which really serve as continues for each level. So there are checkpoints throughout each of the levels, and each time you die, which you get about 3 hits, so 3 hearts, or sometimes you may get more than 3 hearts. You may get 4 or 5 depending on what you're picking up throughout that. But after your amount of lives are done, you have to go all the way back to the beginning of the level. But sometimes you do get a checkpoint, so each life represents essentially a continue, and you can get up to as many as you can. After you get about 50 coins, it does give you another life, so be aware of that as you're going through this game. There are also big onion coins. I'm not really sure what that was for, maybe just for a completionist's sake. I'm not too familiar with that, so yeah, I didn't really know what that was about. So yeah, that's it. But let's get into some positives about this game. The art style of this game is really good. It's very unique. Everything is very vibrant and colorful, and all of the background is bouncy. Kind of reminds me of Kind of reminds me of Cuphead almost. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Cuphead, but definitely not as difficult as Cuphead. But it does remind me of those old school Mario games. So something you just pick up, you go on your platforms, you jump, you run, you defeat enemies, bada bing, bada boom. You're all there and you're done. Using the enemies against each other is a really fun mechanic. One of my favorite things to do was to jump on a tank and to throw it at each other. Or if you're jumping with the tank, it will shoot its bullets. Or using the bullets from the tank that gets shot at you and throwing it back at the tank. So a lot of things that you can do specifically with bigger bosses and other enemies to use against each other to complete some of the levels. So that was some cool things. I like the enemy variety of it, and it increases the level of challenge and complexity based on what you've been given. So it's simple but very, very effective in what it wants to do. But let me get into a couple of negatives. There's not a power-up system, so there's no power-ups to speak of. There's nothing that will make you big like a mushroom. There's nothing that will make you fly. There's nothing that will essentially give you stronger abilities. There's no stars that will give you invulnerability. So I wish there was some sort of power-up system in here, albeit I do like the aspect of using enemies against each other and using everything in the foreground at your disposal. I do wish there was an added benefit of some other type of power-up system. It's also a very short game. I think is about a couple hours in total. I mean, I died a lot because I'm not the best of these type of games, but it's a relatively short game. You can complete this in maybe a couple hours. I wish there was more to this game that I was presented. Hopefully, if you definitely support this dev so he can make a sequel. Definitely support him if you get the opportunity to do so. But I understand if it's just one person making this game, there's not a whole lot that you can do in the areas of shortness. And also the characters didn't play any different from one another. They just have a look. It's kind of like a Mario and Luigi. You have a look, but the mechanics are still the same. I do wish there was a little bit of variety in how the characters move and how the characters play. But again, those are slight nitpicks, honestly. There's not a whole lot of negatives, other than my real negative is that I wish there was a power-up system to speak of. So, but overall, I think this is a fun game. This is definitely something you can pick up really quick and play through and have a good time with. Enjoy the music, enjoy the platforming aspect. Brings you back to your Mario roots. This is available right now for $7.99 on the eShop, and definitely give Bertel Horberg your support so we can continue to make games. I definitely will always support indie devs when I get the opportunity to do so. Definitely pick up Onion Assault and let me know what you think about this video in the comments. Will you be picking this game up after watching my review? I hope you do. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. My name is Chike, aka It's Basically Fun, and I'll see you next time. Bye.